Let's see what we got. New Mishnah. Gewaldig. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Okay, what am I tell you? Okay. What am I tell you? Hey friends, what's up? It's good to see you. Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chav Beis, Daf 22 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, today I guess we kind of continue speaking about like Shneeyis, a shtickle. Shneeyis L'Arayis. How y'all liking Shneeyis L'Arayis? Which do you prefer, Arayis or Shneeyis L'Arayis? Not exactly sure where I'm going with that question. Akoponim. So we talk shtickle about Shneeyis L'Arayis. Then we get up to another interesting Mishnah. I mean, whatever, for you to decide if it's interesting, about, different types of people that may or may not be considered siblings. Alright, that's very good. Friends, let's move on. Alright, where are we? So we're on the Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, about 6 lines before it gets wide, I'd say. Shalach li of Misharsha mitusnaya the Rav Papi. Givaldik. So Rav Misharsha mitusnaya sends to Rav Papi. What does he send him? Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu. He says, teach us. Eishes Ochi Avi Ha'av. Okay. The wife of the brother of your father's father. Alright. The achos avi ha'av, as well as the sister of your father's brother. Mahu. I don't know what I just said, but the sister of your father's father, right? Okay, let's go weiter for a second. Midilamata erva lamala nami gozube. Since one generation lower, it's an erva, so also this generation is a gezerah. Odilma ha'ispelik darta, we say no, it's too far removed. What does this mean? So friends, your father's brother from the same father, right? So your father and his brother, they have the same father. Okay. So now that brother, that uncle of yours, his wife, stay away, brother. Stay away. So the wife of your father's brother who has the same father, stay away. Additionally, your father's sister, stay away. What we're asking about, that's an erva, mida oraisa. Friends, don't do it. Now, what we're asking about is, what if we take it up, what do we call it? Pick it up a notch? Kick it up a notch? Is that what it's called? So, what happens when we kick it up a notch? One level up. I.e., it's not your father's brother, but your father's father's brother's wife. Or what about your father's father's sister? Got it? So do we say that, well, if you go down a generation, so then it's an Isser Midor Orais, it's an Erva, so then there's a Gezer Midor Abonon when you go up, when you're once more removed. So even though it's not also Midor Oraisa, but it'll be also Midor Abonon. Or do we say, leave me alone? Or do we say, leave me alone? I don't want all these rules. If I want to marry my father's brother's wife, I don't want you to stop me. And you can't stop me. Anyways, friends, that's what we want to know. Is there a gezerah when you go up one more level or not? That's what we want to know. What do you want me to tell you? So I'm going to read that again. So just the end of that. So midlamata erva lamala nami gozube. So do we say, well, since if you go down if you step down a generation to the generation of your father, so then it's an erva. So then also when you go up a generation to your father's father, so then it's also a gezerah. Odilma ha'ispelik darta. Do we say no? It's too far removed. Toshma, come here. Mein Shneeyis velo kochoshev lehu ba'hadayu. Ho 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 ho. So, friends, the Gemara says, well, we had a brisa yesterday. What did the brisa say? I flipped back to yesterday's daf. Well, technically the same daf as now because we're still finishing up. But Tana Rabbanan, Mayim Shneeyis. What are the Shneeyis Larais? And they gave a whole bunch of examples. Guess what was not included? These. Your father's brother's wife, or your father's sister. Not included. Right? So Tashma, Mayin Shneeyis, V'lo kol chashuv v'vadai. We had a brisa that said, what are the Shneeyis? These were not included. Tana v'shayr. And for the Gemara, meh. That's what the Gemara says. Meh. It says, look, the brisa is incomplete. It left things out. You know what it left out? Your father's brother's wife. Your father's sister. It left things out. But the Gemara says, whoa. You're not going to fool me so quick. My shire, the high shire. Don't just, tell me, oh yeah, it left things out. Give me examples of other things that it also left out. If it's just busy leaving things out, so tell me other things that are left out too. And then I'll believe you that it left these things out among other things that it's also leaving out. But if you can't do that, don't just tell me, oh yeah, it just left things out. You can't just say that. So Shayir Shneeyis, Devei B'chia. Well, it left out the Shneeyis Devei B'chia, as we're gonna see what those are in just a little bit. But it left out those Shneeyis. So left out the Shneeyis Devei B'chia, right? That we see, we're going to see like your great granddaughter, and stuff like that. So it leaves those out. So just like it left those out, so it also left out your father's brother's wife and your father's sister. Fine. Amemar achsher be'eshes achi avi aviv uva'achos avi aviv. So Amemar said, look, if you want to marry your father's brother's wife, or your father's sister, gesundheit. Amale Rav Hillel to Rav Ashi. Now says Rav Hillel to Rav Ashi, L'didi chazili Shneeyis mar brei derabono, uchsivon shitzre le'isura. So now says Rav Hillel to Rav Ashi, he says, wait a second, Rav Ashi, 1 second. I saw the Shneeyis of mar brei derabono. Alright, I guess he had, okay, fine. So I guess he had a list of the Shneeyis. And there were 16 of them that are also. There were 16 Shneeyis that were not allowed. My love. Tamne demasniso. So what are the 16? So mistame, the 16 are the 8 from the brisa from yesterday, the Mayin Shneeyis brisa. Vishiz devei B'chia, plus an additional 6 from the brisa from B'chia. So 8 and 6, who could tell me? Very good, 14. B'hanach tarte, and if you add these two, your father's brother's wife and your father's sister, so hashitzre. So that's 16. 8 and 6 and 2 is 16, I think. Well, the time. So 1 second. So Rav Hillel says to Rav Ashi, like actually it would make sense that these would be asur. Because after all, right? There's this list from Reb Chia, and there's 16 on the list, and I don't know, how do we get the 16? We get the 16 by including these. Well, the time Rav Ashi responds, but according to you, Shiv Srei Havyon, there should actually be 17. Ika Eishes Achi Ha'em Mina'em. The pshit on the isura, right? We had said yesterday at the end of the daf that your mother's brother from the same mother, right? Your mother and her brother, they have the same mother. So that brother's wife is asur. That's not listed in any of these places either. So says the Gemara, so says Rav Ashi, I mean, if you have 16 and you're trying to calculate them, so don't forget about your mother's brother's wife, which is right from the same mother, which is also one of these Shneeyis. So Da'ika Esha is fine. The Pashin Lisur, fine. Holokasha. This is not a question. Hanach Tarte the Damyon La'adode Kichada Choshiv Lehu. That these two that are similar to each other, they're considered one. V'hashitzrei. and it's 16. So meaning your father's brother's wife and your father's sister, which are both father's fathery, so they could be considered together, and then so they're like one. And then you also have your mother's brother's wife, and that's the second one, and that's how you get to 16. And I saw that these are the 16 that are right there, that there are 16 that are usur. So again, so we have Rav Hillel saying to Rav Ashi that what about the 16 of the where am I? No, I'm sorry, I said Be'er B'chia, but Marbrei D'Rabbanan. I'm sorry, that there are 16 Shneeyis Marbrei D'Rabbanan, and says Rav Hillel to Rav Ashi, it would make sense if these two, your father's brother's wife and your father's sister, are included. And he said, because that's how you get to 16. Rav Ashi kind of pushed back, and he said, yeah, but then there should be 17. Rav Hillel says, no, you can count your father's brother's wife and your father's sister together, and then you still have 16. Okay, fine. And these two would be usur. Your father's brother's wife and your father's sister. Alright? So Amrle, so Rav Ashi responds to Rav Hillel, and he says, but one second, according to you, Yava ksiv le'etera, mihava samchos alayu demarbre dirabono, michosim alayu. Hashtanami dichsiv le'isura, lav marbre dirabono chosim alayu. That says, Rav Ashi says, one second, Rav Hillel, how authoritative is this brisa of Marbrei D'Rabbanan? Did he sign his name on it? Is it an official, sort of position of his? Says Rav Ashi to Rav Hillel, let me ask you a kasha. Even if it would have said that, right, if the brisa would have said that these 16 are permitted, would you believe it? No, because his name isn't signed on it. It's not like an official brisa. And therefore, here also, when it says that it's usur, says Rav Ashi, I wouldn't be so quick to believe it, because it doesn't seem to be authoritative. So again, Amrle, so Rav Ashi says to Rav Hillel, according to you, you have a ksiv le'atera. If it would have said that these 16 Shneeyis are permitted, you have a samchos alayu, would you rely upon it? Is he signed his name on it? No. So also here as well, when it's saying that these 16 are usur, I'll still challenge you with the same question, which is, I don't see his name signed on it or anything, and therefore I cannot believe that it is authoritative. Now here we go, friends. You ready? We referred recently to this brisa of Reb Chia that talks about these additional 6 Shneeyis. Here we go. Tani devei Reb Chia. Let's talk about the Besmedrash of Reb Chia. Shlishi shebivno v'shebebito v'shebeben. I'm sorry. V'shebeben ishto v'shebebas ishto. Shneeyah. So this is referring to your great granddaughter. So let's read that again. Tani devei Reb Chia. He was talking about the Besmedrash of Reb Chia. Shlishi shebibno v'shebebito. His great granddaughter from his son or from his daughter. So like, I guess, let's say his daughter. So it says that shlishi, right, the third. So like his daughter being the first generation. I guess his daughter's daughter being the second generation. His daughter's daughter being the third generation. So the daughter would be the daughter's daughter would be the granddaughter, the daughter's daughter would be the great-granddaughter. Okay? Fine. So, whether it's through his son or whether it's through his daughter, right? So again, shlishi shebibno v'shebebito, the great-granddaughter through his son or through his daughter, v'shebeben ishto v'shebebas ishto, or whether it is his wife, through his wife's son or his wife's daughter, right? Even if they're not his daughter, right? He's not allowed to be with right? He can't be with his wife's daughter, right? Also with his wife's daughter's daughter, or with, and we're saying now that even the great-granddaughter would be Shneeyah, would be a Sheni L'Arayis. Fine. Okay, so that's an additional 4, right? Your great-granddaughter via your son, via your daughter, via your wife's son, via your wife's daughter. Revi'i shebichomiv v'shebichamoso shniya. Additionally, the revi'i of your father-in-law and your mother-in-law. So in this case, we actually count you as well, right? So, or your generation, like you and your wife, right? So therefore, if your wife is like generation 1, your father-in-law is generation 2, his mother, we said, is a aim chomiv, I believe, is asur midoraisa, I believe. Yeah, aim chomiv, do we say it's asur midoraisa or is that a shneiyah? No, it's definitely asur midoraisa, right? Because you can't sleep with a woman and her granddaughter. So memele kilu, your wife, her mother, because that would be isho vita, and right, also it's ubas bita, right? Also granddaughter. So therefore, right, your mother, her mother's mother, which is aim chamoso, and also her father's mother, because that would be right bas bina. So anyways, fine. So we're saying, so if your wife would be first generation, and then so then let's just say, so then so we said your father, your wife would be generation 1. Let's say her mother, right? So her mother would be generation 2. Her mother's mother would be generation 3. All those are asur midoraisa. And now we're saying her mother's mother's mother is a shneiyah larais. Is Shneeyis larais. And we're saying that also your wife's father's mother's mother is a Shneeyis larais. Now, friends, you might be thinking, how come in the first case we don't include your wife, in the second case we do include your wife? We'll get there in a second, friends. Okay, so again, Revi shebechamev v'shebechamoso, the 4th generation of your father-in-law and mother-in-law, right? So like your wife, your father-in-law, and then your father-in-law's mother, obviously, meaning, it's talking about your father-in-law's mother, and then your father-in-law's mother's mother. The assumption is you're not marrying your father-in-law. V'shebechamoso shneiyah. Fine, they are shneiyahs. So, friends, that's an additional 6, right? Your great-granddaughter through your son, your great-granddaughter through your daughter, your great-granddaughter through your wife's son, and your great-granddaughter through your wife's daughter. Alright? And then, also, right, your mother-in-law's grandmother, and your father-in-law's grandmother. Okay. Alright. So, Omerle Ravina L'Ravashi. So now it says Ravina to Ravashi, Mai shno l'maylo dikachoshiv lo liishto. So how come when we're talking about sort of the father-in-law, mother-in-law stuff, so it includes his wife as generation 1? How come when you're talking about the great-granddaughter, we consider her to be the shlishi, not the revi? How come we don't count your wife there? So l'mayla the isur mikoach ishto ka'asi chashiv lo. So when it comes to sort of like your father-in-law's mother and her mother and your mother-in-law's mother, so over there it kind of goes through her, right? Meaning it's her mother and her mother's mother and her father's mother, etc. So it's like through her, so therefore she's included, right? Limata, where when it comes to the great-granddaughter, the Isura, lav mikoach ishto ka'asi, where the Isser isn't necessarily coming through his wife, lo kachashiv la, so we do not take that into account. Meaning, when it comes to his great-granddaughter, so that's not only, right, we said that it applies to his wife's great-granddaughter through her son, and his wife's great-granddaughter through her daughter, but we also said his great-granddaughter through his son, and his great-granddaughter through his daughter. So what's that? So that could be talking about anusa. That could be talking about even like through a rape, if there's a child born, and then that would be those great grandchildren as well, and therefore it's not necessarily coming through his wife; it could be coming through him as well. Fragt die Gemara, "Va ben ishto vas ishto ti isur mikoach ishto kasu v'lo chashiv lo." Perfect the Gemara, but 1 second. Sure, Enachinami. In the Reisha, we talked about the great-granddaughter that comes from him, from his son and from his daughter. But we also mentioned the great-granddaughter that comes from his wife. And yet, we still refer to those as Shlishi. Shouldn't we refer to those as Revi'is since they're coming from her? So, I did the Tana Shlosha Doris Lamata Didei, V'lo Chashava Tananami, Gimadoris Lamata Didah, V'lo Chashava. So the Gemara says, well, look, we're going for consistency over there in the Reisha, right? I mean, since we're already going to mention 3 generations from him, and we're not going to be considering the generation of his wife because they're not necessarily coming from his wife, they could be coming from an Anusa. So therefore we refer to the granddaughter as a Shlishi, not a Revi. So also when we refer to the great-granddaughter from his wife, also we refer to that as a Shlishi, not as a Revi, to be consistent with the great-granddaughter that comes from him. It's now affected Gemara. Omar lei Rav Ashi of Kahana. So Rav Ashi says to Rav Kahana, Shneeyis devei Rabbi Chia yeshloin hefsek or inloim hefsek. Oh. So, these Shneeyis of Rabbi Chia, the great-granddaughter, the great-grandmother from your mother. So, do they have a hefsek or not? Right, Kilu, do they go from where? Is it just like you can't marry your great-granddaughter, you also can't marry your great-great-granddaughter? Crikey. That is a big age gap. I mean, friends, great-great-grandmothers and fathers, you gotta live a long time, Lamaisa. Well, I guess when you're marrying ketanas already, I guess maybe it's a different story. Maybe things are different. But then again, maybe they died younger. Friends, let's go weiter. So we want to say, so Rav Ashi Rav Kahana Shneeyis the very B'chia Yeshlein Hefsek or Indoim Hefsek. Do they continue from generation to generation indefinitely, or do they stop at a certain point? Tashmakom near Dam Rav, that Rav said on yesterday's daf, Dalonoshim Yeshleim Hefsek Visulo, that there are 4 women that sort of the erva kind of stops at a certain point. They're at the Zarayas, the Shneeyis of Reb Chia were not included in that. But Dilma, Kikama Rav Lahi Masnisa. But maybe Rav was only saying in the context of that brisa, right? Meaning we had that brisa that said, what are the Shneeyis Larayas? And it gave a list of 8 examples. And maybe Rav was just saying, among those 8, 4 of them stop. Right, 4 of them have a hefsek. However, once already we're bringing in new material, which is the Shneeyis de Reb Chia, so maybe they also stop, right? Maybe Rav wasn't sort of considering those. Right, Reb Chia was his uncle, Amaisa. Tashma Kamanir Shlishi V'Revi in Tfeilo. 1 second. If we look at the Shneeyis de Reb Chia themselves, right? So what does it say? It says Shlishi Lamata, Revi Lamala. So let's say it means that the 3rd generation, right, the great-granddaughter, and that's it. The great-grandmother, and that's it. Lo. Revi in Tfeilo. But Dilma Mishlishi Ve'elach Mevi Ve'elach. But still, maybe it just means from the 3rd generation and onwards, from the 4th generation and onwards. So it's not necessarily conclusive over there. Omele Rav Rav Nachman. So now Rav says to Rav Nachman, Chozi Mar Hai Merabonon Da'asumi Mayrove. Did you see that there was a certain rabbi who came from Eretz Yisrael, V'Omar, and he said, Bo b'Mayrove, that they asked the following kasha in Eretz Yisrael. Gazru Shneeyis Begerim. Lo Gazru Shneeyis Begerim. Oh. Did they make a gezerah about Shneeyis La'arayis for converts? Let's go weiter for a second. Omerle, to which Rav Nachman responds, he says, Hashtu ma'erva gufa, yilav shelo yomu bain mikdusha chamur lekdusha kal lo gazu b'rabbanon Shneeyis mibaya. When it comes to arayis themselves, we only do it as gezerah. Friends, maybe let's see what this is talking about for a second. A ger, a fellow who converts to Judaism, so he's considered like he's newly born. On a halachic level, it's considered like he doesn't have any relatives. His mother is not his mother, his sister is not his sister, etc. And therefore, on a certain, based on that assumption, based on that line of reasoning, that he's completely born anew and his mother isn't his mother, well, if his mother isn't his mother, technically speaking, if he would marry her, he's not marrying his mother, he's marrying some woman. I guess maybe we'd probably want her to convert as well, I guess. Anyways, however, the rabbis say that, the optics of that would not be very good. That would not look very good. Meaning, because one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, one of the 7 Noahide laws, are arayos. That you can't have, what's that word called? Incestuous relationships. And therefore, right, non-Yidden are also not allowed to marry their mothers. So it wouldn't look good if when he was not Jewish, so he was forbidden from marrying his mother, and now he becomes a Yid, and it's supposed to be this lofty thing, now, right, that now you're a Yid, and he can go and marry his mother? What kind of holy people is this? So therefore the rabbis say, even a convert, yes, technically speaking, his mother isn't his mother, but he shouldn't marry her anyways. So the question is, fine, so a convert's not allowed to marry his mother. Givaldig. What about his grandmother? Can a convert marry his grandmother? Or do we say that it's Shneeyis la'arayis? That just like in general, a fellow is not allowed to marry his mother midoraisa, and his grandmother is not allowed to marry because it's a Shneeyis la'arayis. So do we say the same thing by a convert, that just like he's not allowed to marry his mother, so he's also not allowed to marry his grandmother, because it would be a Shneeyis la'arayis? Friends, that's what's going on here in the Gemara, in Masechta Yevamos and Daf Chav Beis. So let's start this discussion over. So Rava says to Rav Nachman, did you see this rabbi, the also my Rava, that he came from Eretz Yisrael, and he said, Bob, my Rava, they asked in Eretz Yisrael, Gazu Shneeyis Begerim or Lo Gazu Shneeyis Begerim? Did they make a gezerah against Shneeyis la'arayis by converts or not? Right? Can a convert marry his grandmother? That's the shaila. So Amarle, so Rav Nachman says, Hashta uma erva gufa. When it comes to his even marrying his own mother, ilav shelo yomu boin mikdusha chamur lekdusha kala. If not for the fact that the optics would not look good, that we're concerned that people are going to say, I don't understand. When he was not Jewish, he was forbidden from marrying his mother, and now he becomes a holy Yid, and he's allowed to marry his mother. Doesn't make any sense. So that's why they said, no, fine, even when you're a holy Yid, you can't marry your mother. But, right, logazubu, where am I? So, ilav shelo yomu, bayin mikdusha chamur lekdusha kala logazubu rabbanon. If not for the optics of it, the rabbis wouldn't necessarily have to make a gezerah. Shneeyis mibaya. Shneeyis, do you even need to ask about? Certainly, Shneeyis la'arayis would not apply over here. Right, since the base erva is only midrabanan to begin with, so then we're not going to implement Shneeyis la'arayis by his grandmother. All right, what am I going to tell you? Amar of Nachman says of Nachman Gerim, the sugya of converts, of proselytes. Well, once already we're on the topic of proselytes, so let's say epis. Achin mino'im. Okay, if you have 2 fellows who were not Jewish, and they were brothers, the Pashit, their mother was the same person, and then they convert to Yiddishkeit, and now it's now they're known as Ruvain the Jew and Shimon the Jew. They used to be called Ruvain the Goy and Shimon the Goy. Now they go by Ruvain the Jew and Shimon the Jew. All right. So these 2 Jews, so lo ya'idu, they shouldn't testify in court, right? Brothers are not allowed to testify in court. Reuven the Jew and Shimon the Jew are now Jewish. They have the same mother, so they can't testify. Now, technically speaking, right? Now, if they do testify, it works because, of course, as we said a few minutes ago, when they convert to Judaism, so it's like they're reborn, and they're brand new. They don't have any brothers. They don't have anything, and therefore Reuven the Jew and Shimon the Jew are technically not brothers anymore. So we say we don't want them testifying, but if they do, look, at the end of the day, they're really not considered brothers, halachically speaking. However, we do not say that by brothers from the same father. Right? If they had different mothers but the same father, and then they convert to Judaism, they would be allowed to testify together. That would be fine. A Meimar almost says a Meimar. Says a Meimar that even when it comes to brothers that have the same mother, it's also when they convert to Judaism, they can testify together. It's no problem, because technically speaking, they're not considered brothers on a halachic level. Now, why should this be different than arayos? Why should this be different from incest? Right? That we say that a convert, right? If you have Reuven converts to Judaism and his sister Sarah convert to Judaism, they can't marry each other, even though technically speaking they're not siblings anymore on a halachic level, but they cannot marry each other. So how come we say that they cannot marry each other, and yet a Meimar is saying that Reuven the Jew and Shimon the Jew, who have the same mother, how come they would be allowed to testify together? So, and for the Gemara, Erva Mesura, the Kol Mesura, Edis Levezdin Mesura, Begershin is Gaya Kukatan Shinola Dami. Because, first of all, at the end of the day, somebody who converts is considered like they're newly reborn, and therefore any family structures any prior family structures are not relevant anymore, and therefore Reuven the Jew and Shimon the Jew are not technically considered brothers on a halachic level, and therefore says a Meimar, they could testify together and it's no problem. They're not considered brothers, and that is also because Bezdin, we're talking about testifying in court. Court is kind of a sterile environment. It's a controlled environment with judges who know halachis and they know what they're doing. It's not going to create a mess. Whereas incest, anybody could be incestuous, and therefore, if you enable the Reuven who converted to marry his sister Sarah, who converted as well, so people might just end up like kind of marrying their sisters, and it would be problematic because anybody could, it's not a controlled environment, right? Anybody could just end up sleeping with their sister. If they see that Reuven sleeping with his sister Sarah, they won't necessarily realize that it's because they converted. So that's why by incest we have to say that it's not okay. But when it comes to testimony, we could say that Reuven can testify with Shimon, because at the end of the day, they are newly reborn, and this is taking place in Bezdin. Bezdin knows the halachis, and nothing bad is going. We don't have to be concerned that anything bad will come out of it. Alright, friends. So now what we do is move on to a new Mishnah. It says in the Mishnah, Mishayesh lo ach mikol makom zokek es eishes achiv liyibum. Alright. So somebody who has a brother mikol makom in like some place, and the Gemara is going to have to explain what it means mikol makom, but he's got this brother. So we say zokek as eishes achiv liyibum. So it requires his brother's wife to do widow really to do yibum. Meaning, if you have Reuven is married to Sarah, and then there's this brother. You have to explain who's this brother, but there's this mysterious brother. And we're saying that Reuven dies, there's going to be a Yibum situation between Mr. Mystery over here and Sarah. Okay. And Mr. Mystery is considered Reuven's brother for all things. With the exceptions being that if Reuven's brother is the daughter of a non-Jewish maidservant, or the daughter of a idol worshiper, I assume that means a non-Jew. So those kinds of brothers, if Reuven dies, that brother would not do, right? Would not do yibum with Sarah, even though they have the same father. Mishiyeshlo ben mikobakum, a fellow who has this mysterious son. Just like there's a mysterious brother, there's a mysterious son. Poter Eishes Aviv Mina Yibum. Well, he's Poter Eishes Aviv Mina Yibum, right? Meaning, you have Reuven, or let's say Yaakov. You have Yaakov, he's married to Sarah. Fine. Now, Yaakov has this mysterious son that we have to explain who he is, but some son of mystery. And Reuven and Yaakov dies. And the only son that Yaakov has is this son of mystery. So the question is, does his widow now need to do Yibum? So we say no, she does not, because right, the whole point of Yibum is to kind of continue his name. Now he's got a name. Mr. Mystery over here is going to continue his name. So therefore Sarah does not need to do Yibum. All right. And Mr. Mystery, if he smites or if he curses his father, so that's bad. What do we do in that case? I don't think we stone him. Do we stone him? We do something that ends with him just kind of lying there unresponsive. All right. And he's considered his son for all things, with the exception being somebody who has a son from a non-Jewish maidservant or from a non-Jewish person. The Gemara wants to know, okay, let's put an end to this mystery. Who is it? Who's Mr. Mystery? To include a mamzer, right? So if Yaakov had a child with somebody who he's not allowed to have a child with, maybe he has a child with, let's say, like a married woman, right? So that child is a mamzer. So he has two children. He has two sons. He's got Reuven and he has Shimon. Shimon is a mamzer. Now Reuven dies, so I guess Shimon probably at least needs to do chalitza with Sarah. So mikomakum la'asuy mai. So I'm reviewed la'asuy mamzer pshita. Ochivu. Shimon is Reuven's brother. Sure, he's a mamzer, but he's his brother. So ma'adetema leilef achva mibnei Yaakov. Well, I may have thought to learn out of Gzeir Shava that it says achim in the context of Yibum, right? Ki yeshvu achim yachtav. And it also says achim, as we saw the other day, right? Shneim osar achim anachnu. That we are 12 brothers. So it says that by Yosef, by the brothers, by Yaakov's children. Ma lehalun ksherin v'lo psulin, afkan ksherin v'lo psulin. So I may have thought to say, well, just like the sons of Jacob were ksherin, they're not psulin. So maybe also by Yibum, it applies to ksherin, not to psulin, and the mamzer is a psul. So kamash malan, no, it even applies to Shimon, who's a mamzer. Ve'ema hachinami. But why didn't I say, wait, maybe that's taka correct. Maybe the Gzeir Shava is, we should apply it. That just like the Bnei Yaakov were ksherin, so Yibum only applies to ksherin. Kevin dilin Yibum mipater nifter mizakek nami zakek. Well, since, as we said in the Mishnah, that if Yaakov has this mysterious son, and we're saying that who's this mysterious son? A mamzer, right? If Yaakov had a relationship with somebody who he's not allowed to have a relationship with, and they have a child who's a mamzer, so if Yaakov dies, so his wife does not need to do Yibum because he has a child. So just like the child who's a mamzer is significant enough, this child is able to make his father's wife exempt from Yibum, so also he's involved in Yibum to the extent that if his brother Reuven dies, so then there's a Yibum relationship between him and Reuven's widow. I assume that they'll probably want to do chalitza. Continues the Gemara, right, quotes from the Mishnah of Achivu l'chol davar, that we say that this brother who is a mamzer is considered, right? So if we have Reuven and Shimon, his brother, is a mamzer, so Shimon is considered Reuven's brother for all intents and purposes. Lamai ilchasa. What are these all intents and purposes? Liyarsho v'litamilo, to inherit, to inherit him, to become tomei to him. Pshita, this is obvious. Achavu, it's his brother. Sagadati chamino. I may have thought to say that Ho'el Chsiv, since it says in the context of a Kohen who's able to become Tameh, right? A Kohen, of course, is not able to become Tameh, right? You can't go to Beis HaKvaris, can't go to cemetery. But for close relatives, right, like father, mother, brother, sister, he can become Tameh. So Ho'el Chsiv and his wife, Ho'el Chsiv, since the pasuk says Kim l'she'era karuv elav, to those that are close to him, Va'amar mar she'ero zo ishto, that she'ero refers to his wife, Uchsiv, and it says lo yitama ba'al be'am of leichalo, that a husband should not become tamei, right? Should not become tamei. Yesh ba'al she'metame v'yesh ba'al she'ein metame. So there are certain husbands that are able to become tamei to their wives when they die, and there are certain kohanim who are not allowed to become tamei to the wives when they die. Okay, Tzad, how is this? Right, if you have, for example, a grusha marries a kohen hedjit, so they're not supposed to be married. Technically, it's a lav, so the kiddushin is tofes, the kiddushin works, but they really shouldn't be married. And therefore, since they shouldn't be married, so if his wife, who's a grusha, dies, he cannot become tamei to her. So therefore, there are certain instances in which a Kohen would not become tamei to his wife when she dies. So I might think here as well, by Shimon, who's a mamzer, I might think that Reuven can become tamei to his brother who's a kosher, but not to Shimon who's apostle. So Kamash Malon, therefore what the Mishnah is teaching is that no, Shimon is considered Reuven's brother for all intents and purposes, including that Reuven can become tamei for Shimon if he dies. Why don't I say, wait, maybe that was Taka a good point? That just like you can't become tamei to your wife if she's apostle, so then also you cannot become tamei to your brother if he's apostle. So the difference is that when it comes to your wife who you're not supposed to be married to, you really shouldn't be married to her anymore. You should really be divorcing her, and if you stay married to her, you cannot become tamei to her when she dies. Your brother, what are you going to do? You can't make him not your brother anymore. It is what it is. It's the Metzias. So therefore, we say, look, he's his brother, and if he dies, you can become tamei for him. With the exception of somebody who has a brother from a non-Jewish maidservant or from a non-Jewish woman. My time how come that it says in the context of a non-Jewish maidservant that any children, right? That a non-Jewish maidservant, the Jewish master can give a Jewish slave to her, and they can make babies and stuff. And then when the Jewish slave goes free, so then so the non-Jewish maidservant and the children belong to the master. And then, but we say ha'isha viladeh, we compare the woman to her children, that her children are like her, and therefore, even though Reuven may have the same father as these children of the maidservant, nonetheless, they are treated like her, i.e., that I guess like non-Jews. Well, I mean, they are somewhat Jewish. They're like half Jewish, but still, they're considered like her. They're not considered your brother. Okay, fine. Okay. Mishi Eshlo ben mikomakom pote v'chule. So we said somebody who has a child, this mysterious child. So then, if the father dies, his wife doesn't need to do yibum mikomakom lasuyimai. What's this? Who's this mysterious child? Amar v'yuda lisuyim mamzer, to include a mamzer. That a child who's a mamzer, so then if the father dies and doesn't have any other children, the wife is pater from yibum and chalitza. My timer, damarka uvein ein lo ayin olav. The pasuk says uvein ein lo, and it says by yibum he doesn't have a son, but it says ein with a yud, and it's like ayin, to look into him and find out, even if he has a child from a forbidden relationship, that will still be enough for to not have to do yibum. Fine. We say that if this child who's a mamzer smites his father or curses his father, so then he's in big trouble. So how come karikan nasi ba'amcha lo sar? 1 second, why should this mamzer child be in big trouble for cursing his father? It says v'nasi ba'amcha lo sar, that do not curse a king in your nation. It has to be somebody who's acting appropriately, who's doing the mitzvahs, not somebody who's having children with people he's not allowed to be having children with. Well, it's like a Pinchas says the name of a puppet, that when we're talking about when somebody does tshuva, we're talking about here as well when he did tshuva. Okay, so yeah, maybe Yaakov slept with somebody he shouldn't have, and maybe he had a child that is a mamzer, but he's done tshuva since then, and that is why when this child smites him, the child's in big trouble. But can Yaakov just do tshuva like that? We learned to Masechta Chagiga that Reb Shimon ben Menashe says, what's an example of something that is crooked and cannot be fixed? That somebody who sleeps with somebody he's not allowed to sleep with, and they have offspring who's a mamzer. I mean, you can't. What are you going to do? You literally brought something. You brought a person into the world who is a mamzer. You had an inappropriate relationship, and this child was born. There's nothing you can do about that. So how could we say that Yaakov could do tshuva? It sounds like that's something you can never do tshuva for. So we say, yes, you can't do anything about the fact that this child is now a mamzer, but he could still, try to repent, and therefore, if he has repented, so then, if the child smites him, so the child is in big trouble. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Haba'al achoso v'hi bas eishes aviv. Exciting times. You have Ruvain. Ruvain sleeps with his sister, Sarah. And you know who Sarah's mother is? His father's wife. So he sleeps with his sister, who is also his father's wife. Chayiv mishum achoso mishum bas eishes aviv. So he's chayiv twice. He's chayiv for sleeping with his sister, and he's also chayiv for sleeping with the daughter of his father's wife. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda omer eino chayiv ela mishum achoso b'lvad. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says no. He's only chayiv once. He's chayiv for sleeping with his sister, and that's that. V'lo mipnei bas eishes aviv is not chayiv for sleeping with the daughter of his father's wife. My taimayu de rabbanon. How come the rabbi says taka chayiv twice? Amri, well they say michdei. Ksiv erves achoscha bas avicha o bas imecha. One pasuk says, the nakedness of your sister, who is the daughter of your father or the daughter of your mother, regardless of if it doesn't have to be your father's wife per se, just if your father raped somebody or something and they had a child, and your father also had you, and that's your sister. So right, they don't have to necessarily be married. Ervas bas eishes avicha, moledes avicha. Skip the next two words, lamali. So then, why do I need a pasuk that limits it? That says the nakedness of the daughter of your father's wife. Why do I need that? I already know that any daughter of my father I can't be with. So why do I need to say the daughter of my father's wife? Right? So shmamina nechayev mishum achoso umishum bas eishes aviv. The point of it is to tell me that I'm chayev for both of them. Right? I need both of those psukim to tell me that well, in the event that I sleep with my sister, who's also the daughter of my father's wife, so I'll be chayev twice. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says, Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, the pasuk says achos chahi. Well, the pasuk continues and it says achos chahi mishum achoso atam chayvo v'atam chayv mishum bas eishes aviv. No, it's being specific, right? It says that you are chayiv only for achoscha, for the fact that she's your sister, but that's it. You're not going to be chayiv also for the fact that she is the daughter of your father's wife. Rabbanon hay achoscha hi my avdile. What do the rabbis do with this achoscha hi? So mibaylu l'chayiv al achoso bas oviv uvas imo, to say that you are chayiv for your sister who is the daughter of your father and the daughter of your mother. So this is talking about where these two children, the son and the daughter, who are brother and sisters, were both born from Yaakov, from their father who raped their mother, right? So you have a man, he raped a woman, and they had two children, a son and a daughter. Now, if we look at those two psukim, this kind of falls through the crack, because the first pasuk says bas avicha o bas imecha, that either the son of your father or the son of your mother, but not this who they have the same this is the same father and the same mother, whereas the first pasuk says the first pasuk is talking about either the same father or the same mother. And the second pasuk says, Eisha Savicha, Eres bas Eisha Savicha, right? So it has to be a woman that they have ishus with, that he was actually married to, whereas Anusa, she wasn't married, right? So therefore, technically speaking, in this case where they have the same father and the same mother, but they weren't, but the mother was never married to the father, that kind of falls through the cracks. So how do I know that I'm going to be chayiv for that? How do I know that I'm going to be chayiv even in that case, right? So that's what the Rabbanon learn from that pasuk of achoso hi, right? What did it say? Achoscha hi, right? So again, we have a situation where you sleep with your sister, who is also your father's wife's daughter. So the rabbis say you're chayiv twice. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says you're chayiv once. The rabbis say you're chayiv twice because you have those two psukim. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says but it says achoscha hi, to say that you're only chayiv once for achoscha, right? But not for the daughter of your father's wife. So now the rabbis, what do they do with achoscha hi? So they say, well, that comes to include also the situation, right? To be that we have a pasuk that's saying that also in the case of your sister who has the same father and the same mother as you, but they were never married, so you'll be chayiv for that as well, even though there isn't a specific pasuk for it. Lomar she'ein masirin min adin, to make the point that we don't warn from logic, from kal v'chomer, because you could have said, look, I mean, it's logical, it's obvious. I can make the argument, well, if he would sleep with his sister who, only has the, same father or the same mother, he's chayiv, and certainly when they have the same father and the same mother, it'd be chayiv. But still, we don't punish people. I mean, for arayis is chayiv. Karis, I guess, if you sleep with your sister, or even chayiv misa if you sleep with your sister, or just karis. But anyways, we're not going to be mechayiv, right? We don't warn just from logical arguments. We need sources, and therefore the rabbis learn out from achoscha hi to say that even though yes, it might be obvious, but nonetheless, here is a scriptural source to say that if you sleep with your sister who has the same father and the same mother, but they were never married, so it is still a problem. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, imkein nichtov rachmana achoscha, says Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, but I can learn that just out from achoscha. He lamali. Why do I need he? Mishum achoscha atam mechayiv v'atam mechayiv mishum bas eishes aviv. What he teaches is exactly what I'm saying, says Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, that he says that you're only chayiv for your sister, you will not be chayiv for also the fact that she's your father's wife's daughter. Whereas the rabbis say, no, even though it says achoscha, you still need to write he. Shalotomar that you shouldn't say be'alma mazhirin min adin, that in general we do warn from sort of logical inference. V'chitema, and if you say, well, if we generally warn from logical arguments, then why does it have to say achoscha? So I'll just say, well, because enochinami, it is just something that I could figure out logically, but nonetheless the Torah wrote it anyways. Because of Rachmana, the word he is just to make a point, right? Meaning maybe I'll say in general, yes, we could make sort of warnings and say that, a certain situation, such as in this case, when you sleep with your sister who has the same father and the same mother who was never married to your father. So we could say that that's a problem logically speaking. So if you say that mazhirin min adin, right? So you might say that in general you're able to be mazhirin min adin, and therefore I would be able to figure this out on my own as well. And then you say, okay, so then why does the pasuk need to say achoscha? Pasuk doesn't need to say achoscha. It could have known it on its own. But most of the aseh b'kav chomer torach b'chasav lakra. That's something that I could have figured out on my own anyways. The Torah just nonetheless wrote it anyways. So therefore, kasav rachmana he. That's why the pasuk said no. Not only does it say achoscha, but it also says he, to make the point that no, in general we do not say, we are not mazhirin min adin. We do not use our own logic to figure out something that's asur. And we need it specifically to be written, and that's why it says achoscha he, to make that indication. Because if it would only say achoscha, you might think, okay, fine, you could figure out things logically, and the extra word, okay, the Torah included anyways, even though it didn't need to. But achoscha he makes the point that no, it's specifically in this case because it was deliberate about about the case of your sister who has the same father and the same mother who's not married, who weren't married. That is why it's included, but not because we can figure it out logically. But Rabbi Yehuda says, yeah, but if that's the case, then really achoscha he should be in the other pasuk, the pasuk that talks about or your father or your mother. Why is it in the pasuk about your father who's married to your mother? So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says that wouldn't necessarily, right? The psukim don't necessarily make sense in the way that the rabbis are explaining it, and therefore he doesn't really buy it so much. Friends, that was daf Chav Beis of Masechta Yevamos. So the first part of the daf, we were talking about a situation. We kind of continued on the topic from yesterday, where we were talking about is your mother's brother's wife Shneeyis? We said yes yesterday, and then we talked about what about your father's brother's wife and your father's sister. So we were trying to figure out whether they would be usher or not. We didn't really, I would say that it wasn't really super conclusive. We saw the Shneeyis of Reb Chia talks about your great-granddaughter and your mother's great-grandmother and stuff, your wife's great-grandmother, things like that. We talked about converts and how when they convert, they're like nu'el, and therefore they're only usher to their mother because of a gezerah. And the kasha was, what about their grandmother? Then we talked about a brother who was a mamzer, and the nafkaminas that are there about yibum, and about yibum in terms of his brother, his wife doing yibum with him, and also his father not having to do yibum if he's the only child. And then we talked about a situation where a fellow sleeps with his sister, who's also his father's wife's daughter. The rabbi said he'd be chayiv twice. Rabbi Yehuda says that you only be chayiv once. Peace out.